and the subject of Moshiach. And I said that one of the subjects related to Moshiach is Torah Shel Moshiach, which means the teachings of Moshiach. Explain what that means, that when Moshiach comes, the deepest secrets of Torah will be revealed. Now that process, even though it's going to be when Mashiach comes, the process began gradually. Gradually means that it first became revealed on one level, and then after a while at another level, and so on and so forth. So it means that really the teachings and the secrets that will be revealed when Mashiach comes are so deep and so spiritual and so, I guess the best word to use is out of this world, that they can't even come into the world. And therefore, it has to come in a gradual process. Just like a person grows intellectually. First, you learn things when you are very young, thank you. And you go to the first grade and the second grade, you go to elementary, then you go to high school, then you go to college, which means the brain will be able to absorb the things that you learn later at an early age. It's a gradual process. So too, the world has to go through a process gradually to be able to absorb this holiness and this godliness and this godly teachings and view of Mashiach. So the first stage was in the times of Shimon Bar Yochai, and I showed you, I gave out that sheet, which shows that in the times of the world before Shimon Bar Yochai, there was sort of a wall, a partition that separated heaven from earth, in the sense that these teachings were only on heaven; they were not able to descend down here to earth. And the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was the first one to sort of take down that barrier, what was blocking, and allows these deep secrets of Torah to come down here to earth. But obviously, it wasn't total because still it was hidden. He taught Hasidus, he taught the secrets of Torah only to a few individuals. So I gave out this sheet last time, which shows the different stages. That the next stage after the Baal Shem Tov was the Arizal. The Arizal, who lived not that long ago, he lived 400 years ago, he began to reveal the teachings of the Zohar on a whole new level, making it more public. In fact, he writes that until now, it was something which was very restricted. And now, not only it's no longer restricted, but it's actually a mitzvah to publicize these teachings. And then on this sheet, it lists the names of 3 people that each one, after the Arizal, was publicized in Hasidus of their generation. And after these 3 people came Rabbi Majeski, who began to publicize Hasidus. So the first one of these 3 was Rabbi Majeski, and he was a student of the Arizal, and then came the other 3 generations. And of course, there's a lot of history about each and every one of these 3. But I just want to tell you something about Rabbi Majeski, and I'll ask the students from that are here in level 1, level 2, who excuse me that I'm saying the story twice because they heard it before, but I just think it's a fascinating story that helps us see a little bit more of what was going on. This is a person who was called Rabbi Majeski. The history that led to him becoming who he was. So there's a story behind it, and there was other stories recorded by the previous Rebbe in the book, which is called the Memoirs. And he writes that there was an individual who was a very big wealthy merchant. And in addition to that, he was also a big activist and did things for the Jewish community. And because he was a merchant, he had contacts with people of influence, and he would use that contact and that influence to improve things that the Jewish community needed for improvement or to protect them from things that they needed protection. And then his daughter married someone who was similar to him, very brilliant, very bright, a Torah scholar, God-fearing, a businessman, and he knew many languages, and he was also using them for the same purpose to help improve the Jewish community. Unfortunately, it was a tragedy when he was very young, probably not that much after he got married, that he was traveling on a business trip and they were attacked by robbers, and he and his assistant were both killed. The money was taken away, but it was a very big tragedy for the community. And his daughter, the wife of this person, the widow, had to go through a process called chalitza. So this is something which we learn in Torah, but those who are following Rambam were learning it recently, that a woman whose husband passes away, God forbid, and he has no children, if he has a brother, then it's a mitzvah for the brother to marry the widow and so to rebuild his brother's family. If the brother doesn't want, or she doesn't want, then there's a process that needs to be done. It's called chalitza. Chalitza is sort of, it's like a get, but a whole different format. And this is what had to be done with her too. In that town where they lived, when they did the chalitza, they invite more people there. It would be sort of a big occasion. Not that everyone had to see her personal thing, but on the contrary, to give her brachas that in the future she'll be able to find a husband and she'll be able to have a life. And that's what happened after they did the chalitza. The custom in that city was that all the kohanim, from age bar mitzvah until whatever age possible, would line up and they'd give a bracha of the kohanim for the woman for her future. And they also announced that if anyone in the community could help her get married and has a suggestion, they should come up with a suggestion and give it over to the Bezdin, the Jewish court of rabbis, and they'll pursue it, which they did, and help people get married. In this case, nobody had any suggestions, but a short while after this happened, there was an incident there. There was a man living in that city. He was a man that came from Spain, and he was not married. And he lived there for about, I think it says 15 years or so. He was very secluded. He studied Torah day and night, davened and studied Torah, had very little to do with the rest of the community, and everyone just regarded him as a very big tzaddik and uninvolved with community affairs completely. He came to the Bezdin, and he told the Bezdin that being that they made an announcement, he wants to say to them that he is ready to marry this woman if she's willing. He's ready to marry her. Now, he was a man in his 50s. She was a young woman, so it seemed a little bit weird. But nevertheless, because he was such a great person, they respected what he said, and they would give it over to her, let her make the decision. So she was summoned to come to the court of rabbis. And when she came, she stood in front of them, and she was about to say something, and she broke down crying. She was crying and sobbing, couldn't stop herself. They waited till she calmed down, and they asked her, why? What's going on? And she said to them, there's something that happened, and she's debating in her mind for the last few days whether she should tell someone or not tell someone, back and forth, and she doesn't know what to do. So the rabbis told her, tell us, and maybe we can help you. So she told them that she's having a dream. She had a dream. Her father came to her in a dream. Father passed away. Came to her in a dream and said that it was Mazel Tov. It was decreed in heaven that you should marry this tzaddik from Spain who lives in your community. So when it first happened, she of course dismissed it as the dream. Then it happened again, and again, happened a number of times. And recently her father became more stern and was very strong with her, said, you must do this. This is a heavenly decree. Don't delay it. And she, on one hand, she feels like it's foolish. She's going to marry this big tzaddik who's much older than her. On the other hand, this dream keeps reoccurring, and she doesn't know if she can ignore it anymore. When the Bezdin heard that, so now they said, now it's clear to us that this is really something heavenly, because he came to us a few days ago to say that he's interested in marrying her. So they got married, and they had a son. And the son was named Eliyahu. Why did he choose that name? He named him after Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu the prophet. He taught his son Torah, and his son also was together with the father, secluded. And shortly before his bar mitzvah, he called his wife in, and he told her that this is the heavenly decree, that he's going to be leaving this world even before the bar mitzvah. But he should know that this boy is not an ordinary boy. He's been teaching him Torah, and he has prepared him for a mission. He came to this world to do a certain mission. And not only he, but he's the beginning of a chain of other great tzaddikim that are going to have a certain mission until Moshiach comes. And whatever he says he wants to do, let him do because he knows what he's doing. He's being guided from heaven, and you should trust him. And he passed away, and after the bar mitzvah, he told his mother a short while later that he's going to leave, and he's going to be traveling to learn Torah somewhere else, which he did. And she hadn't seen him for many years. I think it says 40 years. 40 years later, he came back home. But at that time, he was a mature adult, a wife and children, married, and he was already known as Rabbi Baal Shem. By the way, the word Baal Shem means master of the name, which means that his knowledge of Kabbalah and Hashem's names was so accessible to him that he performed miracles, and thousands of people would come to him for brachos, for health, for children, for marriage, for anything that people needed. So he was the first teacher of Kabbalah, but like his father said, he's going to be the beginning of a chain. So the second link in the chain was Rabbi Yoel Baal Shem. The third link in the chain was Rabbi Baal Shem, and then came the Baal Shem Tov. By the way, I don't know if you paid attention, but these three are called Baal Shem. And the Baal Shem Tov is called Baal Shem Tov, which is that distinguishes. And he's the one who began Chassidus. And even though it's all connected to Kabbalah and the hidden secrets of Torah, but Chassidus is something that's a little bit different. So maybe the classes will talk about it. Now the Baal Shem Tov, even though he came in this chain order, he had another teacher who taught him. I don't want to go through the story because I went through it in the beginning of the year when we were celebrating Baal Shem Tov's birthday. And I hope that everybody remembers it. But just to mention the name, and the name is Achi HaShilomi. Achi HaShilomi is the name of a prophet, a Navi, that lived in the times of the Nevi'im. So he had passed away a long, long time ago, but most of the tzaddikim had that opportunity. They would meet with tzaddikim of the previous generation, and they would study Torah with them. Even in the Gemara, it's found, in the Zohar, it's found stories of tzaddikim, how they studied with Eliyahu Hanavi and others. And that's where they got their information about the spiritual world and the spiritual teachings and so on. So I gave out the second sheet, which I hope that you all got, this sheet, just to show you where does this person, Achi HaShilomi, fit into the picture. What you're looking at is something which is written by the Rambam, that from the time that Hashem gave the Torah until the completion of the Talmud, there are 40 generations. And here are the names of all those who in each generation, they were the highest authorities of Torah in each generation. In other words, they were like the Moshe Rabbeinu of that generation. So first Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe. Moshe gave it to Yeshua. And then it goes from generation to generation. And the last one was number 40, is the one that, you have this here in the opposite order. I guess it's going from down up. The last one was the one who wrote the Gemara. His name was Rav Ashi, and he wrote the Gemara. In these 40 generations, you'll see it says Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu was the famous Eliyahu Navi that comes to the Seder, he comes to a bris. So Eliyahu Navi is someone which in the books of Tanakh it tells us the story. He was a Navi, he was a human being, born of a father and mother like everybody else. But at a certain point, Hashem told him that he should rise and ascend to heaven, and he became a Malach. Now there are angels and there are humans, but he's not a pure angel, not a pure human. He's both. He's an angel, and there are times when Hashem sends him back down to this world as a human being to do things and appear like a human and act like a human and so on. So in fact, there are many stories of people that dealt with someone and had no idea that this was actually Eliyahu Navi because he looked like a regular person. There's once a story with the Baal Shem Tov that his student said, could you give us the privilege one time to see Eliyahu Navi? And he said, okay, there'll be a time. One time they were at a bris, and the Baal Shem Tov was there, and he wanted a certain sefer, a certain Torah book. So he told the students, if you can do me a favor, find this Torah book right now, I need it. So they went to look for it. In those days, shuls and yeshivas are not like today with thousands of books in the library. Anyway, they looked around in the bookcase, they looked on the tables, they couldn't find it until finally they saw there was a man sitting, one of these sort of homeless people that came to the bris, and he's looking in this sefer. And they probably thought he probably doesn't even know, how to read it. But anyway, they said, could you please give it to us? The Baal Shem Tov was asking for it. Any normal person, if you say to the Baal Shem Tov is asking for it, they would say, of course, take it. This person said, no, I'm reading it now. Mm-hmm. And they said, but it's for the Baal Shem Tov, he needs it now. And he said, no, I'm reading it. So of course they were beside themselves, it's so disrespectful. And they just took it away from him and brought it to the Baal Shem Tov. And he looked at what he looked, but nothing happened. A while later, they came to Baal Shem Tov again and said, you told us once that you're going to show us Eliyahu Navi. It still didn't happen. So he said, well, this man that you pulled the sefer away from him, that was Eliyahu Navi. So you don't know all these. When we were children, we were somebody in the neighborhood that looked a little bit off. Oh, maybe it's Eliyahu Navi, Maybe he's a hidden tzaddik. But Eliyahu Navi had a teacher who was his teacher, and his name was Achia. Achia Shileni was a Navi. He was a student of David HaMelech. If you look at the sequence, you look at the English, you'll see number 35 is David. But before that, number 34 is Achia Shileni. And then the next level, next generation was Eliyahu Navi. So most people like Arizal and others who studied Kabbalah, most people they studied with Eliyahu Navi. The Baal Shem Tov could be Arizal also. But the Baal Shem Tov, he studied with Achia Shileni, the teacher of Eliyahu Navi, and it looks like the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai also studied with Achia Shileni. So, from the Baal Shem Tov, who took the teachings from Achia Shileni, they studied together for 10 years. The Baal Shem Tov writes in a letter, testifies that he studied with Achia Shileni every single day for 10 years, and then came the time they began to teach Hasidus out in the open. That's where it all began. And then came Richard Magid, then the Alter Rebbe, and each Rebbe of in his generation. So this all goes back to bring out the point that the teachings of Shir Yochai are really a glimmer and the beginning of the teaching that will be revealed when Moshiach comes, because that's where you find the hidden secrets of Torah. There's one question which tell me if you know the answer, and that is, Lag BaOmer is actually the day that he passed away. If you want to say that he brought these teachings into the world, it was the other days, not the day that he passed away. It was the day that he was alive. The day he passed away is the day it all stopped. So why do we celebrate Lag BaOmer? We should maybe celebrate his birthday, his bar mitzvah, his wedding, the day that he began to teach his students. But it has to make sense to celebrate the day that he passed away, that this is the day that's considered when the barrier was removed and the secrets of Torah were revealed in this world. It's when it all stopped.
Because it's a question.
Yeah.
Because when Tzaddik passed away, his I don't know, his teachings and his performance, I don't know, like more than it was before. No.
Very good, right? There's 2 chapters in Tanya, in the 4th volume of Tanya, where he talks about what happens spiritually when a tzaddik passes away. And he says that everything that the tzaddik accomplished spiritually through his lifetime, when does it have its full impact on the world? Is the day that he passes away. And just to say one word about how it makes sense, and the way it makes sense is because the tzaddik is a man that has, like everyone else, he has a soul that's in a body. And the body limits the soul. The body is something physical. It's like taking a brilliant light and putting it into a tinted glass. So the light is not as bright. Because the soul is in the body, therefore the light of the soul, the energy of the soul is just not as strong as it is when it's outside of the body. So therefore the tzaddik teaches Torah, the tzaddik does mitzvahs, he's bringing down light into this world, but everything that it brings down is still limited because of the body. Once the soul is no longer limited by the body, then all his mitzvahs that he did in the past 70 years, all the Torah that he studied in the past 70 years, now it sort of gets released from the limitations of the body and has a new unlimited effect on the world. So really the day that's considered that he had the utmost effect on the whole world was the day that he passed away. And every year when that day comes around, whatever happened the first time is repeated with even more strength than before. So now I want to explain based on this another thing. And that is the simcha on Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is a very big simcha. And when I say simcha, you might not see so much here, where you can see it more than any place else is in Israel, and especially in Rome, where the Rashbi is buried. It's literally, and in most communities, Hasidic communities, Sephardic communities, people are up literally all night dancing and singing and celebrating. And the reason is because he requested that. Most days of passing are commemorated in a sad way. The person left us, the person is gone. But he requested that it should be celebrated like a wedding. Those were his words. Yeah.
He said this before he was passed away?
Yeah. That this day should be celebrated like a wedding. Even though, I don't know what happened before, but apparently the one who sort of promoted this celebration more than anyone else was the Arizal. He started the promoting. So one of the things that Rebbe brings out to understand the importance of the Simcha on Lag BaOmer is, so first we have to understand why. Not only why, but how does it make sense? The greater the person, the greater the loss. The greater the loss, the more the tragedy. And the greater the tragedy should be less simcha, not more simcha. One of the things that brought down is that there was and this is brought out in the writings of the Arizal, not in the storybook, but in the teachings of the Arizal, one of his books. It says that there was a student whose name was Rabbi Levi, and he was a student that had very strong feelings about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. There were such strong feelings to the extent that every single day he said the prayer that we say on Tisha B'Av. There's one prayer which we say only once a year on Tisha B'Av that's called Nachim. It's in the Siddur. He would say that every single day, 3 times. Even on Tisha B'Av we say it only once a day. He would say it every day, 3 times a day, in Shabbos, in Mincha, in Ma'ariv, every day of the week. So one year was Lag BaOmer, and the Arizal and him traveled together to Meron. And then tragedy struck. Something happened to 2 of his children. And the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai communicated with the Arizal and told him to tell this student that the reason why it happened was because this day is supposed to be a day of Simcha. And because he was mourning on this day, he desecrated the Simcha of the day, and unfortunately that led to these results. And why was he such a person different than everybody else that he mourned the destruction of the temple more than anyone else? The Arizal himself explained that. He said that his neshama was a reincarnation of the soul of Yirmiyahu HaNavi. Yirmiyahu HaNavi was the one who actually experienced the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. He lived at that time. He was the leader of the Jewish people at that time. And you can imagine what it meant to him to experience the Beis Mikdash being burned down, people taken away as slaves and chains, people being killed and murdered and massacred. So he felt the Beis Mikdash destruction and everything goes along with it more than even other tzaddikim, because as if to say he was there. His neshama was a reincarnation of Yirmiyah Hanavi, but nevertheless, not unlike Bomer. So you can understand that the importance that Lag Bomer is a day for Simcha. But the question is, how does it make sense? So the answer, basically, to this question has to do with the fact that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was about revealing the teachings that are going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. That's how it's all connected. And what does that do? When Mashiach comes, what's going to happen on Tisha B'Av? Everyone understands that it'll no longer be a day that we'll have to fast, a day that we'll have to mourn. We'll be able to make weddings, we'll be able to eat meat, we'll be able to drink wine, we'll be able to hear music. There's no reason to mourn anymore. We have Beis Mikdash again. But it says in Tanakh, and the Rambam writes this in his halacha, not only that we'll discontinue mourning, it'll actually be a yontif, and it'll be a simcha. And Chassidus explains it'll be even a bigger simcha than a regular yontif. How can we understand that? And the answer is, I'll leave you give answer because I'm racing with the clock here, so we have no choice. The answer is that anything that happens to a person, if a person something goes wrong, loses money, God forbid health, we know that ultimately it's for a positive reason. Let's take an example of story in Chumash. The story of Chumash where Yosef was sold to the Egyptians by his brothers. Not to the Egyptians, another tribe, but eventually he ended up in Egypt in jail because his brothers sold him, right? When they found each other, the brothers asked for forgiveness. Do you remember what he answered them? He told them, don't worry, this was God's plan. Because I came to Egypt, I was able to save so many people's lives because there was a hunger. So even though you did what you did, but this was really Hashem's plan. A very good thing came out of it, and that is that all the people that lived at this time, I was able to save them from hunger. That's one thing. The Medrash says another thing. The Medrash says that the Jews were supposed to be in Mitzrayim and suffer for 410 years. By the fact that he was there and he went through his suffering for X amount of years, as a result of that, we only were Mitzrayim 210 years, and the suffering was only 86 years. I was thinking about that. This year is 5,786. Maybe it's also the end of all the suffering, 86. Mm-hmm. So only 86 years. Why? Because he was there. So that means, I'll get to you in a second, that the fact that they ended up selling him and he ended up in Mitzrayim was actually the biggest favor for hundreds of thousands of Yidden, that they had to suffer less for so many years because he was there. But outwardly, it definitely looked like something negative. Yeah.
I know you're racing the clock, so maybe it's off. But so the man who's had the tragedy with his sons, who was the reincarnation, I'm like feeling so bad for him. What good came out of that? He said, like, when
I also feel bad for him. And I don't know what good came out of it. There's no doubt that good came out. I mean, this question is about everything and anything that happens to anybody.
Right. Just it's on my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The best example is to give when you lose $5. It's easy to understand. You lost $5 and something good comes out of it. Actually, I know such a story where someone lost a purse and then they found it because someone wrote it up in the newspaper that lost and found. It was an honest person. Whoever lost such a person, it was a small community. They should come to this, call this person. They called them up and they went. But when they went there, they found out that they're actually related. And the families were separated after the war. They didn't even know from one from the other that they were alive. So imagine you lost a purse, you're very upset, and then you find you lost a brother, sister, cousin, or whatever. So sometimes we see it openly. With Yosef, we see it openly. In most cases, we don't openly understand what is the good that's coming out of it. But everything that happens that's negative has it as a hidden brother. That's number one. Point number two is that the hidden bracha is always going to be in proportion to the negative. Like I said, normally if I have a loss, person loses $1,000, that means there's a bracha, but the bracha is somewhere in proportion to $1,000. If the loss is, God forbid, something greater and bigger and more important, it's a greater loss, but then it must mean that the hidden bracha is something greater. Because the purpose of this is to hide. It's like saying, if it's a bright light, I need something stronger to cover it. If it's a small light, a small covering is enough to block a small light. So if Hashem does something which is really outwardly very negative, that means that what's hidden in it, this bracha must be extremely so strong, so positive, so bright, it had to be hidden. Being that Tisha B'Av is the opposite, a tragedy of all tragedies, the beginning of all tragedies, it must be that the bracha that's in this day is also infinite bracha. When Moshiach comes, that's going to be revealed. If that's going to be revealed, then this day will be a day of celebration, not only not mourning, but we'll celebrate the hidden bracha that's going to come out of this day. So imagine if Tisha B'Av could become a yom tov of dancing and singing, then the day that Rav Shimon Chai passed away, when Mashiach comes, will also be a yom tov. The only difference is we have to wait till Mashiach comes. Rav Shimon Chai was already there. He was already revealing the teachings of Mashiach, which means he was in a spiritual place, in a spiritual space, which is will all be when Mashiach comes. And therefore, in his world, and when we relate to him, there is dancing and singing and rejoicing on the day that he passed away. Which means, to a certain extent, when we participate in rejoicing and celebrating on Lag BaOmer, we are sort of living that day, at least, in the Mashiach spirit. And that's what he wanted. Yeah.
Why he was buried there? He lived there?
Why he was buried in Meron?
Yeah.
What?
Cave. So the cave where he lived? Yeah. No.
You mean the cave where he was hiding for almost 13 years? I don't think it was in Meron. No, someplace else. What?
There was another story, but I don't remember the story, but I think after the guy, someone like someone came in with water, they need to bury the tail or something like this.
It could be it's in that booklet, we made a collection of different, the book that we gave out on Shabbat, I think, I don't know if this, you have to give it out yet, but it might be that it gives the answer there why that was chosen, one of the first,
She did give it out.
She didn't give it out yet.
No, she did.
Oh, she
have
did?
it.
Yeah, I think it might say something there. And this connects to another thing, why children, remember we spoke about this, why such emphasis on children? So the sheet that I gave out this morning is from Davening, and it says here, don't touch my anointed one and do not harm my prophets. Who is my anointed one? Who is that?
Moshiach.
It said the Moshiach. The simple meaning means children. Don't touch the children, means don't try to corrupt the children, and don't try to corrupt or touch the leaders. Because basically these two things is the source of our existence. Children are the foundation of the Jewish nation. If God forbid children are not in the right place, then the next generation is going to be totally corrupt. If the leaders of Chas v'Sholom not in the right place, then they'll be corrupt. I mean, this is the joke that people make fun, but the principle is the principle that when leaders are corrupt, that changes the whole world. That one time the Sahara decided that he wants to retire. He's working very hard, so many years, it's time to retire. So he had to go look for a new Yitzhara. He found a young Yitzhara, full of energy, ready to do the job, all passionate about getting people to do Averis, and he hired him for the job. He trained him, gave him all the rules, and he told him, look, let's try the next 30 days, I'll give you a trial, we'll see how you're doing. Anyway, after 30 days over, he goes to look for the Yitzhara and can't find him anywhere. And I don't understand, where is he? He looks and he searches. Finally, he finds him. He's playing ball. playing books. I don't know. When I was Iyar, I had no time to do anything. I was busy day and night. Then a second was time to just relax. When do you have time to relax? So his answer was, I do it different than you. You used to go to every single person and try to convince them to do the Naver. I go just to the leaders. And if I get them, I got everybody. So therefore, I have more time to do. That's what it's saying. Do not touch my prophets and not touch my children. For these two are the foundation of everything. But it does say Moshiach. So there's another interpretation that it also means children. And why children are under one? Says the mothers would put all sorts of oils and perfumes on the children because they would play, get into the dirt, and the scent wasn't so amazing. So they would put pleasant scents, powders, and things on the children. They should smell pleasant. But the Rebbe said, but at the end of the day, they're called Moshiach, which means yes, there's a connection. What is the connection? The spark of Mashiach that every Yid has is more revealed in children than it is in adults. The fact that children naturally have a munah, they believe in Hashem, they believe in Torah, they believe in Mashiach in such a natural way, it's not just because, oh, they're children, so they're gullible. No, it's because they have the spark of Mashiach open more than adults. Once we become adults and the brain, the intellect starts developing, the intellect sort of blocks that depth of the spark of Mashiach, which is higher than intellect. And the intellect gets involved and sort of blocks that light. Children, the spark of Mashiach is open in them. And therefore, being that the whole day of Lag BaOmer is the Mashiach day, it's all about the hidden secrets of Torah that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai revealed and prepared the world for Mashiach. Therefore, that's also a day that we celebrate with children, because the more we bring children closer to Torah, closer to mitzvahs, that means we are developing the spark of Mashiach in them to become stronger and brighter and more open. And that is what brings Mashiach in haste to becoming the Mashiach. Okay, so I'd like to wish everybody first of all, a happy Pesach Sheni. Second of all, a good Shabbos. Third of all, a happy Lag BaOmer. I know it's not Monday, but we're already getting ready. It should be a day that all these things that we're preparing for should actually happen. We should see with our eyes. You're very welcome. Okay. This table. I know that sleep is very important. Taking the table and dancing here, but I think that was how I finished today. They need a few spoons.
It's like the best thing. Pajamas. It's welcome. It's professional. He had a surgery on his, he was bad.
Yeah.
He's walking fast. How does the thing? You were there for a little bit?
Yeah, I was kind of. At least I feel like. But we don't really know.
No, yeah. Okay. Maybe do any fish shorts.
Not really know if it's not super bad. I don't know if everything else said what.
I know Saturdays I don't worry too much anymore, but obviously, but I like to.
If this would be that. Is it so hard?
Yeah, they do, like,
They only have to.
they usually, if they have a shearer and the oven, but they don't always do their stuff, not always.
Yeah.
We are in here.
Hmm?
We're here.
For you today, can I just ask you an opinion of it, will take about 5 minutes or less?
Sure.
So we're keep your road notice.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you about a. Okay, yeah, so this week we're gonna talk about a. Very good Mishnah. And the story that's somewhat famous. Or the interpretation of the story is less so.